Hello and welcome. These are horse racing selections for Thursday, the 2nd of November. I am Flatcap Callum and I'm hoping you are all very, very well. It's a funny old day, Thursday, funny old day. 6 meetings, there's quite a lot of races going on. Half of it on the synthetics and half of it on the jumperoos. But the weather forecast, because of Storm Kieran, is not great. So anywhere sort of south and east of England. So your Lingfields and your Chelmsfords particularly. The weather's not going to be great. A lot of high wind. So definitely proceed with caution at some of those tracks. It's not the weather actually. To be fair, over in Ireland at Thurles looks all right in comparison. So haven't necessarily got the wind over there. So yeah, you never can quite tell because there might be some strange things, and I think there's possibly even a risk at Lingfield if the weather is really high. The weather's high, the wind is really high. At least you're going to get some non-runners because some people are going to decide not to travel. But that being said, with the plan, I have got 8 horses for the day, 2 Yankees, 1 jumps Yankee National Hunt rules Yankee, and 1 all weather. Nothing at Newcastle actually, interestingly, because normally I quite like a bit at Newcastle, but nothing. I have got 2 at Lingfield, and I've got 3 at Chelmsford, so I'm stacked on the southeast courses. Just a little bit nervous about the impact of the weather on the roads and horses getting there and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's £15, 2 Yankees. It's what we've got, and I think I've worked a little bit to try and try hard for Thursday to find some things with some slightly different angles. So there isn't loads of big fields particularly, and loads of big prices knocking about. And it definitely feels like price-wise at the moment it's hard to come by. Again, if you look through the results from Wednesday, it was 2 8-1 winners. They were the biggest price, and then I think 6-1 was the third biggest price, and then like 9-2s. 26 races, 14 of them won by favourites, and more than 50% of the races on Wednesday were won by a favourite. So for favourite backers, they had a nice day. They had a really nice day. They'd have done perfectly well out of that, stringing together a whole bunch of nice little things there. There were some big price places, but not winners on Wednesday. So I've kind of, because sometimes I know I put out a horse and I look at races, and there's enough people following the channel long enough to kind of sort of start to see things in the way that I might see things. So often when I put my tips through, then people who share theirs in the comment have got lots of similar horses. I think that's probably less likely to be the case for Thursday. I've gone for a little bit more of the unusual. Now that may well then therefore not go in our favour, because it means I'm certainly going for some stuff that's slightly riskier angles that not most folk won't look at. So I will dwell on some of the selections a little bit more, just to give you a little bit more insight into about what's made me go that way. So before I do that, I've got to do a review of Wednesday, and then after I've done the tips for Thursday, we need to talk about the tips, the league stuff. I think that's it. I think that's what I got for this vid, as far as I can think. There's probably some other stuff. I think there was some stuff I was thinking about, but it's got a bit late, and I think I'm just going to leave it. So Wednesday, the result on Wednesday, it was one of them ones I wrote in the comments, but 45% strike rate, 5 out of 11 placed, 2 1 out the placings, and 1 was 2 out the placings. We only had 3 duffers out of the 11. But when you don't get more than 2 in a bet, and when you get no winners out of those, then you're not going to make the money in the way that I do things. So just one of them ones again. Overall strike rate, although this year's been hard going, the strike rate isn't really far off. It sort of feels like last year it was slightly above average for me, and this year is slightly below average in terms of variance. And we talked about variance and luck and that kind of stuff. Just think there's less stuff connected. There's not necessarily less to go on, although I think that if I think about the last couple of months, I look back and I think, I don't think, and someone will correct me if I got this wrong, I don't believe in the last 2 months, for instance, I've had a little go on any day. There hasn't been a day I've really been that close. And so that kind of tells me that sometimes you find this little flurry of days where I'm like having a little go, every week on something. It's not really been the case the last couple of months. So, anywho, that's a bit amusing. What were we doing Wednesday? We started off with a place, then we had 2 out the placings, 1 out the placings, duffer. there was a duffer in every one basically, but yeah, nothing back because we didn't have that each way single. And then those, not far. I mean, that race, it was the right Luke Comer race, because if you look at Luke Comer's horses recently, they've been running awful. One winner was backed in at 5-1. I think he had in the last good few weeks. Everything else, massive prizes, nowhere close. And in that race, he hit second and fifth, but unfortunately, fifth didn't pay out, and the second horse was not the one we were on. There you go. But I was on the right race for Luke Comer, but that was as much as I can tell you about that. And then this one, we had one out the placings, placed, duffer, placed. So we had 2 places, a duffer, and one out the placings. So a similar story to bet 1. And then bet 3, similar-ish, placed, duffer, non-runner, very close to winning, but place. Is what we got on that one. So I had it as 21 on 743, something like that back. So yeah, I think we're 1580 down for the week. So it's less than a day's stake behind. We've got plenty to play for, but we are still on that hunt for getting something decent. Right, let me talk you through. So the less obvious bets, and I say less obvious because some of these races are less obvious, definitely. There'll be some races here that people won't be looking at, and I guess for most of these, I'm less interested about the race than I'm about the horse. Whereas sometimes the race leads you to find something in it. These are mostly the horse. So we talk you through what do I remember about why I've picked these horses. 12:10 Lingfield. I'm going very early, so we've got an early one, and it's a bumper, so National Hunt flat race. So National Hunt rules. So most of these horses are going to progress on to be jumpers. Watch out here at this 12:10 Lingfield is they're running it on the poly track, so it's not run over turf, and that's what's led me down the route to my selection, the Glen Rovers at 22s. So some interesting things about that horse. Trained by TJ Kent, is not necessarily a household name trainer, but does pretty well with the small amount of horses. This is the first horse that's technically run over National Hunts rather than under jumps rules. All completely flat yard, but this is a 2-mile race on polytrack, and the horse is making its debut. The horse has got really good breeding, so never run, but got good breeding, and there's clearly been some sort of challenge with it. It was bred by Godolphin, never raced for them, and then got sold on. And I just think it's very unusual to start it out in a 2-miler when the form suggests it's sort of mile 10. Mile/mile and 2, so that's in 10 furlongs. But relatives wise, it's pretty decent standard, this horse. And yeah, I just think very, very interesting decision. And I'm first time technically running anything over rules, jumps rules, although it's a flat race. And starting out as a 4-year-old there. I mean, this wouldn't be the first Godolphin horse to not make, or ex-Godolphin horse to not make the track till it's 4 years old. Those happen sometimes. So they're problematic horses or for whatever reason. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting horse. And in the context of the race, a lot of these don't have a lot going on in breeding, and there is stuff in the Glen Rovers form. If you actually look at how it's bred, it should be perfectly capable of handling itself in polytrack. And some of these horses, even if they go on to be okay sorts, not necessarily going to have breeding to know how they're going to do on polytrack. So I think it's worth a little go on the Glen Rovers at 22. We're then going 12:45 Lingfield Tsar Mix. That is a horse making its debut. It originally trained by Sam Thomas, now trained by John Joe O'Neill. It's run one race this year, and it was basically a bit of a duffer. But previously it ran 2 races on softer ground, and both of those times it seemed to perform to a decent standard. And I think from a handicap mark point of view, on handicap debut, I think if you ignore that last run when it was running on better ground that maybe it didn't want, and it was running first time out of the season, they're sticking a tongue tie on it, so there's clearly something that they're trying to get a little bit of a better performance out of that horse. But John Joe O'Neill doesn't just pick up donkeys for the sake of it. So the horse has got something about it, definitely. And if you look at the rest of the horses, it's a fairly weak race. There's not a lot that would you would argue a case for it's an absolute certainty. So I think it's well worth chancing the first time out in a handicap that it's going to bounce on from the duffer last time out, because the form previously was actually pretty good. So we've got that one. Then we've got the 205 Thurles. Well, a 15 runner maiden in Ireland, that is not normally what I'm going to get involved in, and even if I did get involved in it, a 10-1 shot is not normally what I'd be looking at either. Now, what I like about this is there's an Elliott horse at the top of the market, slightly odds on at the time of making this video, purely because, I mean, not purely because it's an Elliott horse, it will always be a shorter price than it should be in a race of that nature. But it didn't run well last time it was seen in February, so it's got to come back from a break. Clearly, the form before that in bumpers was pretty good, and you would argue from a bumper form point of view, it's the best on offer. But this is a hurdles race, and what you've got with this horse is a horse that doesn't need to be necessarily running over more maiden and novice type races. They could go chuck that horse into a handicap if they wanted to. They're choosing to persist, and it does look like it's improved the last 2 times it's run. And on bare form of those 15 runners, bear in mind there's not loads of form to go on, I think that's got the best form over jumps. So at 10-1, I know it's 15 runners and you're only going to get paid 3 places, but that horse has to underperform to not be in the frame. And I think that horse has got mileage in that 10-1. It should probably be around about 5 or 6-1 is how I read it. But, you know, these kind of races don't always go to plan. So we'll see. Dodgy race, but interesting enough horse. And then the 255 Stratford. Why not now, Roy? Why not now, Roy? Why do I like Why Not Now, Roy? Why not? I think that's another handicap debutant. I think I'm trying to think because I haven't stuff just spins out my head. I think it's a handicap debutant. It's Kieran Burke's horse. That's right. It's coming back to me now. Kieran Burke's horse. It's a handicap debutant. Kieran Burke trains it. If you look at the history of his horses, he does very well for horses stepping up on handicap debut. And I would say that the standard of the last time out that horse ran is actually shows that the handicap mark's not too bad at all from a debutant. Again, there was a big field, but a bit like that Tsar mix race. There's not a lot obvious you'd want to go and look at, and I think you'd absolutely think it's worth taking a chance on a horse stepping up on handicap debut from what it's done before for a trainer whose horses do have a history of doing that, and not afraid of a big price getting knocked in as well for Kieran Burke. That's that. So we've got 20p each way Yankee, 50p each way singles on the 3 bigger prices. That's Glen Rovers, Zarmix and Why Not Roy, and a 50p win single on Mrs. Beaton. So 365 and Paddy. So interesting thing again here, because I'm shopping about here for my selections. These won't be everyone's cup of tea at all. 3 places, 3 places, 3 places, and then this one's 4 or 5 depending on the bookie. I think the only exception I think is Sky R4 there. But because this 255's got a bit of a shorty at the top of the market, not all the bookies are going 5. So at the moment, 365, Paddy, Betfair, Unibet, Betway of the 5 that I would talk about here usually are 5. But even Sky are 4. So because Sky are 4, but they are 4 there and everyone else is free, it means 365 and Paddy are going to be better because you'll get best price guaranteed. And I would choose 365 over Paddy on the basis that if that race reduces runners, they're more likely to hold you and pay you out in 5th place. So 365 edges it over Paddy for best price guaranteed. And then if you can't use either of those two, Sky, Betfair, Unibet and Betway are the next best. 7.90 is the best. All right. Hopefully those explanations are useful. It just gives you a bit of insight. The key thing is looking at what the potential of the horse is, but you've also got to, and this is what some people overlook sometimes, you've got to balance it in what's the rest of the standard of the race. So if it's all well and good finding something clever that's a big price, but if you've got 3 or 4 horses at the top of the market, you're like, they're really, really solid, you probably just don't want to waste your time on it, because even if that other thing looks a bit interesting, it's not necessarily going to pay off on those ones. So trying to pick races where you've got a weak front of market in order that actually you've got, it's worth taking a chance on something a bit bigger, and you've got to have a clear reason why. All right, bet 2, the all-weather bet. 1 Wolves, 3 Chelmsford. The Wolverhampton horse, Ravenglass 16s. That's one of those, if you look penultimate run, course and distance, ran a decent race last time. They stepped it up to a mile at Kempton. Significantly, stepped up to a mile. The horse looks best on 7 furlongs if you read the form. Difference between Kempton and Chelmsford, significantly, there's lots of differences. But Chelmsford is a left-handed track. Kempton is a right-handed track. And some horses, if you look at this horse, when it's run over 7 furlongs and it's run on a left-handed track like Chelmsford, sorry, talking bollocks. Sorry. Well, I haven't got to Chelmsford yet. Wolverhampton is a left-handed track. Chelmsford is a left-handed track too. But Kempton is right-handed. So sometimes there are certain horses, and that's what I like about Kempton, you've got to find horses that do well at Kempton will often continue to do well and do poor at other tracks because they seem to prefer going on a right-handed trajectory. Left-handed trajectory for Wolverhampton. So that ran a last race, not the best distance, and over at Kempton. If you look at 7 furlong form, including penultimate run, that horse is overpriced, should be about 9s. 6:30 Chelmsford, made for Harry, 25 to 1. What's that? No, lost it, completely lost it. I literally can't remember why I picked the horse now. It's really unhelpful, that is. There's definitely, I'm sure there was something in that. There was something in that about that ran at Kempton and ran a poor race too. But yeah, hopefully you'd appreciate. I think I do pretty well to remember what I remember in my head when I'm talking about these things without actually writing a note down about anything. So anyway, I can't remember why I've picked that horse. I liked it. There you go. Take that on faith. And then the last 2 are basically ones where they should be about 5s or 6s really. Whether they'll get down to that, I'm not sure. They could do. So there's a little bit of mileage in there, but they've got decent course and distance form in competitive races. So at 8 o'clock, Jacqueline 17 to 2 and Boasty 8:30 17 to 2. So 20p each way Yankee, 2 times 50p each way singles on the big 2 prices, and then 35p each way double on the last two at Chelmsford. So we've got a little interest on the 2 shorty prices there. 2 places isn't going to be enough for us to make profit if everything else has gone down, but 2 winners would be. There's something that's coming back to me now. This made for Harry. This is the 3rd handicap debut. I've got 3 handicap debuts. In my head, I'm saying that horse ran 2 duff races at Kempton. Last time it ran at Chelmsford, it was much better, albeit it was a 5-runner race and it was second. But actually, I think if you look at the form, although it's a fiddly race with 5 runners, the other horses' form stacks up to say that it was potentially a true run race. So sometimes you get these things where a spike in ratings will skew something. Oh, am I going to sneeze? I think it's gone. Oh, this video's gone out of control now, isn't it? Right. Sometimes that happens. It's just stuff pops in my head. Right, yeah. So that's why I picked the horse. And it's trained by William Stone. And William Stone's only had 1 run in the last couple of weeks, and it won. I don't put loads of weight in a statistic like that, but I do put weight in trainers' horses running to form at the similar times of seasons, because they tend to, whatever it is, whether it's feed, exercise, time of year, whatever it is, you tend to find certain trainers peak at certain times. There's not a lot to go on, but the trainer has had the only horse he's ran out in the last couple of weeks did go win. Right, there you go, it's come back to me. All right, this one, there's 2 races in here. For the life of me, couldn't tell you what they are now because my brain's gone fried. But Coral, Sky and Betfred are 4 on 2 of them. So by the letter of the law, in terms of actually how I'm recording stats, therefore, if those do hold, I should be recording 4th place if needs be, because there's 2 races where Coral, Sky and Betfred are paying 4 places. All other bookies are free. So what you'll see, generally speaking, apart from that 255 Stratford, the other 7 races for the vast majority are going to be 3 places. So we've not got a lot of extra place race interest on this Thursday. So Coral are going to be better for you if you put it on in the morning because you get best price guaranteed, unless you've got my dodgy Coral account that I talked about yesterday. And then Sky or Betfred are joint second best because the same place terms, not best price guaranteed. 7.10 is the bet. All right, hopefully that was a bit useful. Like, because I appreciate sometimes I just skim through things, and sometimes I don't even remember what I tell you about the horses. And what I actually say out loud is only a small amount of the whole picture. But I'm hoping it was useful today, just because there was definitely some stuff I'm picking in there that is not usual. I say not usual. I look for opportunities when there's nothing else obvious, but when it's worth looking around. And when you look at weak markets, and I think there's some weak markets on there Thursday that lend itself to a few potentials in there. There we go. That's that. Tips and stuff. I have got notes for tips and stuff. I did write that down because that's too much to remember in my head. Right, tips and stuff. Basically, you got these 3 guys who have smashed it out. So between Des Gibbons, Samar Kevin, and Secret Lemonade Drinker, they are the top 3 for last week. They are the top 3 overall, and they were the top 3 for October as a month. But each of them won one of them titles. So one of them was best last week, one of them was best overall currently, and one of them was the best for October. They've all got one accolade each. So that's lovely, isn't it? A lovely little bit of synergy. So last week, Des Gibbons, he did 10-point win on a 14-1 winner. So he made £140 or 140 points profit. An absolutely cracker. Secret Lemonade Drinker, he had that one and another one, split them both and ended up with 99.20 profit to come second place. And then you're thinking, well, maybe they're going to knock off Samar Kevin, but oh no, he just slips up there with his 5 each way on Highland that won one of the handicaps at Cheltenham. So those 3 finished top 3, and then the rest of the rundown from last week: Stuart Benson 4th, Demon Drums 5th, Alex Powell 6th, Scott Harvey 7th, Rob Walkin 8th, Lee 9th, Leo joint 9th. Lee and Leo joint 9th, 20 quid. It was a more profitable week overall. There was some big winners. So in terms of the overall leaderboard, Samar Kevin is retained number 1 spot with 225, so £225. So the top 3 have really, really pushed on from last week. So Samar Kevin 225, Secret Lemonade Drinker 201.80, I think. It's in. You'll see it. I'll put it in the comments. But 201. So he's only 23 quid behind. And then Des Gibbons zoomed himself back into the top 10. Previously in the top 10, dropped out, back in 3rd place, 171.60. And then you got a big jump down to 4th place, Alex Powell, who's been doing decent the last couple of weeks, but is only 4th, 87.83. So you've got like an £84 jump between 3rd and 4th, and then then the leaderboard draws down. But what you're finding is similar people are kicking about. So each week we're getting a couple of people drop out the top 10, a couple of people jump in, but the rest staying the same. Then overall for the month of October, Secret Lemonade Drinker was the title holder, £220. So Des won last week. Samar Kevin's top at the moment overall. Secret Lemonade Drinker won last week, for October, 220. Absolutely destroyed everybody else basically. Then Des and Samar Kevin. Des finished 129.60. Samar Kevin 129. That was the difference between 2nd and 3rd. All right, so well done to all of those folks. Yes, it's been interesting. It is hard keeping up with the stats, but Stephen is my absolute saviour. So yeah, every week I will keep doing it. Thank you very much, Stephen. All your work and effort is massively appreciated, and people only see a minutiae of the detail and stuff that he's gone into on the spreadsheets. It's just incredibly helpful to have a bit of a check on there. And if you watch it, Stephen, there was, I think it was one thing I was going to query with you, but it wasn't anything about the top 10. So that's that. I think that's it. Yeah, there was other stuff I was going to muse about. I'll leave it there. We're good, aren't we? Okay, I will be back then Thursday night. Will I be back Thursday night? I'll be back Thursday night for Friday. See what Friday's got for us. So Friday, we're moving into the weekend. We've got the first day of the Breeders' Cup. Day 2 is the better day. And unless you haven't noticed, it's going to be on ITV as well. So ITV Racing showing their usual stuff on a Saturday afternoon. I think it's 8 races now that Dan Royal's gone out. I think it might be 8 races on the TV. But in the evening, both days, and particularly on the Saturday, they've got full coverage of most of the Grade 1s on Saturday night. So for those of you who haven't got your fix enough in the afternoon, you literally could watch it all evening, right up until about midnight on Saturday night. So I shall have a little look. I don't know what I'm going to find yet. I mean, clearly the difference here is I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of US tracks, and so you've got horses running there that won't have run there before, and it does add a variable that's harder to read. So I'll have to make sure when I'm looking at selections I'll be factoring that in. It just means there's a slightly different threshold for stuff like that, where if you're basically looking at a bunch of horses that are not familiar with the track, you don't quite know how it's going to go. So yeah, when I'm talking about UK and Ireland tracks, I've got a much better handle and knowledge of what's what and what kind of run styles and what happens if the ground changes, where the draw bias might be, and all that sort of stuff. Santanita, I'm not going to profess to you an expert, but what we have got in our favour for Breeders' Cup is you've got top draw races. What that means is all the horses should be trying. If they're not, then what's the point in entering them in these top quality races? These people are entering these horses to try and win money. They're not running down a handicap mark or getting it fit or that kind of stuff. They're running them because they want to try and make some money, and whether that's win money or place money, you'd like to believe that all the horses there are trying. So that in itself is kind of counterbalances the kind of lack of experience of track and knowledge. And I'm just being honest, I'm sure most people get. There's only so far your knowledge can go, and everyone's got a specialty, haven't they? US tracks is not my specialty. All right, but we'll see how we go on that. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you very much. Have a good Thursday. Stay safe, particularly if you're in the south and east of England. I don't know if we've got any viewers who are based out in the Channel Islands, but they look like they're going to get a bit of a hit. So stay safe out there, and I will see you tomorrow night. Thank you very much. Bye bye.